So I've recently been appointed as a lecturer in social inequalities. So most of my teaching at the moment is around the sociology of racism, race, and ethnicity. I teach around racialized class formation, the idea that, race and class domination are inherently tied together for the advanced social theory course, and I do some teaching around the introduction to sociology and social theory papers. Well, I did my undergraduate here, so the experiences you have as an undergraduate are normally a bit different to the experiences you now have as a faculty. I remember coming to Cambridge and you kind of get introduced to one of these archaic traditions, so wearing a gown for dinner, seeing someone unicycle to lectures on the way to Sidgwick site. So those experiences will stay with me. I think that nowadays I tend to think about Cambridge less as like a particular space where you can have an experience and the way it's connected to wider processes of inequality, like what I study. So I think that especially in sociology, one thing we want to emphasize is that you can often read about issues in books, but that will only take you so far. You need to go out into the world and see what's happening around you. And for example, the amount of poverty that you have in Cambridge is necessarily tied to these processes we study in sociology to do with, the retrenchment of welfare and workfare, the rise of social insecurity, the commitment to politics of austerity. So as I've matured in a sense, academically, I like to think that I think less of one individual Cambridge experience and more about the way it's connected to those issues that we study. Well, I think that the department's strengths lie in the fact that it just has this amazing breadth of expertise across research and teaching. And that's not just with the faculty, that's also, what the postdocs are doing, what the PhD students are researching, and even what the MPhils and the undergraduates are doing for their final year dissertations and for their one-year projects. And I think that breadth itself, speaks to multiple geographic areas to begin with. So we have people working in Latin America, India, people working right close to home in Cambridge and the UK. A temporal breadth, so some people are doing historical sociology, some people working in social theory are kind of asking, what did this person 100 years ago, like, Marx, Durkheim, what were they saying, and how does it have a bearing on our society right now? So we have that historical aspect. And then we have people like myself working in the here and now. And then we even have people, in a sense, working on almost the future. So, we have people now working on digital society and digital sociology, sociology of the environment. What kinds of issues do we have to prepare? What do we have to prepare for what's going to come in 10, 15, 20, 30 years? I think one challenge that faces us particularly is the fact that this kind of tension between our commitment to being a department of sociology and our institutional apparatus, so belonging to the University of Cambridge. So I think that, at its very core, sociology is about the study of inequality, marginality, exclusion, domination, exploitation. Of course, I would say that because my area is in inequalities, but I feel like that's really what's at the core of sociology. And we have to kind of reconcile that commitment to almost challenging the status quo and standing for social justice, whilst at the same time belonging to a university that's historically been accused of being elitist and currently still practices, this still has this practice of elitism around it. One way in particular I think that the department's kind of grappled with that issue is with this recent movement of decolonization. And I think that decolonization isn't something that's just been spread across Cambridge and Oxford and these elite universities. It's really a global social movement that we're seeing all across the world, right? And I think that our department's been at almost it is a leading driver of this movement. We have a working group that's split between not only faculty but also undergrads and graduate students and postdocs. And what we're seeing is this gradual move towards, recognizing that certain areas of sociology, especially around the sociology of race and colonization and Eurocentricity, have kind of been excluded from sociological canons, and we're really addressing that. And I think that that doesn't just involve going back to history and seeing what was excluded, who was excluded. So the most obvious example being the way that Du Bois was excluded from the social theory canon, but also the way that certain people weren't counted as sociologists. So Claudia Jones, for example, a black feminist Marxist, often isn't seen as a sociologist, even though her work has such a great bearing on Marxism, she's disregarded as being a journalist or, an English scholar. So our department's doing work around that, but it's also looking, right here and now, what kinds of knowledges and what kinds of, which kinds of academics are being excluded from our current conversations. And I think that that's one way that our department's really driving this decolonization agenda. So I think that we have two, I would say almost duties as our department. So one of them is to train a new generation, either of sociologists or to train a new generation of people to think sociologically. So I think that if we look at various things that have happened in the past couple of years, obviously people will point to Trump, they'll point to Brexit, they'll point to the rise of the new far right across Europe and beyond. And many, many people, especially in the media and in political fields, say, this is really unexpected. But if we look at what sociology has been doing for the past 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, these kinds of happenings weren't unexpected at all. They were actually really easy to predict. And I don't want to kind of turn sociology into this like predicting machine and we do it to predict the future. But rather, if more people were trained to think sociologically, to think less about individuals and more about how individuals are kind of situated within the mind of social processes, and how many social processes continue even though they appear to be invisible, racism being one of the most obvious cases, then we wouldn't really be so surprised when stuff like Brexit, Trump, New Right happens, and we'd be prepared to be able to stop it before it even kind of gains traction in that respect. I do also think that sociology in our faculty, the future of it is tied to the future of the discipline, and that's something that it seems like we've definitely been preparing for. So, we now have people working on, as I've said, such a wide variety of areas. We have people at the forefront of the sociology of marginality and exclusion, not just in the UK, but globally. And it's really about drawing out how, class inequality to India can be almost connected to racism and anti-racism in Latin America, because, this is part of the new global racial order, the global capitalist order. So we really kind of draw these connections between what's happening across the globe. We have people working in areas in sociology which did not exist like 100 years ago because, simply society has developed so much in 100 years that sociology is a discipline that's kind of always reacting to what's happening in society in that respect. So really our future is tied to the future of the discipline, but I think that we're well prepared to go forward in that direction.